All right. Welcome to the Peckham Pulse podcast, where we bring you inside the people, purpose, and passion that fuel Peckham Industries. I'm your host, Steve Benton, Corporate Director of Safety and Risk Management. Safety is a core value of Peckham, not just a priority or a set of regulations. Safety is about people, our family, and friends. The Pulse will provide in-depth conversation on what sparks our passions and how we carry that through to strengthen our safety culture. At Peckham, our mission is to safely provide high-quality construction materials and services, but let's be honest, it all starts with you, our members. But nothing, not a ton of asphalt or a mile of freshly paved highway matters more than making sure everyone goes home safe every single day. Welcome back to another edition of the Peckham Pulse podcast. Really excited to have Jimmy Wilborn today, and we're also joined by James Comerford. Both folks are part of our safety staff, and we're talking about Distracted Driving Awareness Month. So, Jimmy, I guess first, before we get into the topic, let's talk a little bit about your background, your past, what brought you to Peckham, some of your personal passions. What gets your heart racing in the morning?
Let's see. As a kid, I always wanted to be a firefighter. I always wanted to be a police officer. As in sports, I was always worried about safety, my teammates, my friends. So when I first moved to Vermont, 35 years ago or so, I became a firefighter for a small town. And then I transitioned to become a state trooper, and I retired in 2019 after almost 19 and a half years. But
What'd you do before that?
I was in retail after college.
Okay.
So I was a retail manager for several different companies.
Okay. Where'd you go to college?
UConn, University of Connecticut. Mm-hmm. Who's going to win the national championship?
Oh, that's right. It's March Madness.
March Madness.
Okay, now we're talking. Now we're talking my language.
A couple of years before I retired, I did some work for the precast division of Peckham.
Okay.
They had an issue there with an employee. I solved that problem. I got to meet the general manager there, who happened to be friends of a friend. So I talked to him during my days of going to precast. And then after that, I saw him at a couple parties. And just joking around, I said, Brian Lent is his name, you got to find me a retirement job. So fast forward maybe 6 months from there, He introduced me to Lou Merkel. Another 6 months later, I talked to Lou again. And then I was put in contact with Bob Uremko and Joe Wildermuth. We had a meeting in Saratoga about the job that was opening up. And we talked for an hour and a half, and I got an offer letter soon thereafter.
Wow. So
I've been here just over 6 years.
Why don't you talk a little bit about what you do at Peckham, what your role is?
Certainly. As the fleet safety manager, Peckham incorporated cameras into their trucks. So when I first started, we used a system called Smart Drive. Then we moved to a system called Tenna. And currently we're using a system called Netrodyne, which we have a outward-facing camera, inward-facing cameras, so you can see the driver. We also have some trucks have cameras on the outside.
Right.
So we get a 360 view of what's going on as our trucks are going down the roads. So I look at film footage every day. I get emails, and at the height of the season, I may view 400 or 500 videos of our drivers every day.
Yep.
Every day that the trucks roll, I get video footage, and we see a lot of good things. But we see some things that need to be corrected. So that's where the coaching part comes into place. And I will tell you that since the cameras have started, a lot of things are changed. Our drivers have gotten a lot better. We had a problem with drivers not wearing seatbelts. We had a problem with drivers on their cell phones. And that's almost nil at this point, which is great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What was it? Maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we decided to come up with the rules to live by. And it's amazing going back then to now, just the progress we've made. As you said, we've all but eliminated, I would say, our distracted driving, right? Where we would typically see somebody pick up a phone, text, pick up the phone, put it to their ear.
Correct.
And obviously, state law is that we can't do that either. So it's illegal.
Right.
But even if it wasn't illegal, we still wouldn't want to do it because of the distracted driving aspects, right?
Exactly. When you are trying to dial your phone and then you put it up to your ear, you're distracted.
Right.
But there's so many other distractions too in your vehicle. There's the distractions of your radio, your GPS. Signage is a distraction, but it's about the amount of time that you look at those things that can get you in trouble.
Right.
We also have an issue with some people reaching behind them to look for something in their trucks.
Yep.
So we're trying to curb that now too.
Or eating.
or eating. Yeah.
The eating ones kill me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like they got a full kitchen in the cab sometimes. It's like they heat up a bowl of soup. They're with the soup. They're with the soup bowl eating cereal or
Sure,
soup.
sure.
And
We
it's
had
crazy.
the incident where a driver actually had a bowl of spaghetti and was
Wow.
eating it with a fork, holding the bowl on the steering wheel with his arm, and then eating, which was interesting. But he's
And
ceased doing that.
That's frowned upon.
Very much so. So we had a conversation, and he hasn't done that again.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's tough as a driver. I mean, you're in the cab by yourself.
sure,
We have some drivers that, they're not local deliveries, right? They're bringing liquid down to New York City
Sure.
or
Canada,
Yeah.
they need to eat, right?
correct.
But obviously, driving while they eat is we've curbed that, so that's obviously very, very good.
I think, you hit the nail on the head there. We've seen huge improvement, even just on our properties, not just on the road.
Correct.
Right? So when we go to the mines, when we go to precast, we don't see a lot of folks on their phones anymore. We've got the earpieces that we provide for the members. So that there in itself is a huge leap because we're moving machinery, we're moving big pieces of concrete, and they're all driving vehicles. So that we kind of forget that sometimes when we think about distracted driving, about the on-property stuff. But again, that improvement there is still huge.
Really good point. Jimmy, why don't you talk a little bit? You've put a lot of work in taking some of the analytics from our Netrodyne system, converting those to reports that managers can use. We just recognized, I think, one of our Athens drivers as the driver of the year.
Right.
Why don't you talk a little bit about that process and some of those success stories?
Okay, so the Netrodyne system grades our drivers. They grade them for things that they do incorrectly, and they grade them for things they do well.
Right.
So the average score, or Netrodyne says a good score, is 850. And we have a few drivers below that threshold? We do. But we have some that are way above that threshold. And our driver of the year, whose name was James Vorse, I believe his score was 982.
Okay.
Which is amazing.
And the highest score is 1,000?
The highest score, it can be over 1,000.
Okay.
And you can reach the 1,000 by certainly doing correct things, stopping at every stop sign, stopping at every traffic light, not speeding, not following too closely.
Right.
And you can earn points by, if, say, someone cut in front of you, you back off. You will earn yourself extra points because you're creating that space.
Okay. Okay.
So for say stoplights and stop signs, a streak of coming to complete stops does the same thing. So you can earn points. That's how those scores raise up.
Okay. Okay.
And for someone to drive as much as he does and to encounter as much traffic as he does,
Right.
to have a score of 982
Pretty good.
is pretty darn good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought him up because, not only was he the driver of the year, but he was actually, of all the drivers, he was the safety champion. So, big shout out to James Vorse this year for
absolutely.
getting both of those recognition awards.
Talk a little bit about Netrodyne. Remind me, why did we choose Netrodyne?
Well, after Smart Drive, we tested a few different systems, and they weren't the quality that Netrodyne is. Netrodyne not only has, like I said, the inward and outward facing cameras and the other cameras on the outside, but they have an AI feature. So the AI feature actually catches a driver being distracted. If a driver's dozing off or if a driver's falling asleep, it will catch. The AI feature will look at the stop signs and look at the traffic lights, where all the other systems did not have that and did not have the quality.
Yeah.
There's a feature that some of the guys don't like and gals don't like, which is it will alert you. The system talks to you, and sometimes they find it annoying. But my comeback is, if you're falling asleep, like we had a driver literally fall asleep, and the system alerted him awake, that's what we want.
Correct.
So some drivers I never fall asleep, but you don't know if you're going to fall asleep or not. So we're going to have that feature stay active so that it's going to alert you.
Right.
It alerts you if you roll a stop sign or run a stop sign.
Yep.
And, I see some of our drivers, if that happens, they're like, they're upset with themselves.
Right.
So they're now policing themselves, and they're getting much better at it.
Talk, Jimmy, that's a good segue. Talk a little bit about you've got kind of a more interesting, you weren't just a state trooper, but you provided detail to the Vermont governor. Correct?
Yes. I was on Governor Shumlin's security detail for 3 years, which brought me all over the country. ended up taking me to Vietnam and China.
Wow.
I've flown on private planes. I've been in the White House several times. I've had some nice tours. Met a lot of great Secret Service agents, and it was an amazing experience, and that I will always carry with me for the rest of my life. And plus, I had a lot of extra driver's training because there's a certain way that you have to drive a vehicle when you have a protectee. So I went down to Quantico and did driver's training there.
Okay.
There was also a driving school that I went to the Tennessee Highway Patrol and did one there as well.
Okay.
Besides the regular driving schools that I've gone
Right.
to. And then at Peckham, I've gone to the Smith driving school.
Yeah.
So
Smith system.
Smith system,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that helps with advising our drivers the best way to navigate the roadways, leaving themselves in enough space between vehicles, looking down the road to make sure that they can see any obstacles that are coming their way.
Yep.
So,
Well, that's pretty cool. I bet you got a ton of stories that are.
yeah.
Yeah.
Some I won't mention.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
nothing bad, just funny stuff that, I probably
Do you
should
miss it?
share. As far as being a trooper, that's the only part I miss. And well, that's not true. I miss the dangerous stuff of being a trooper.
Yeah.
The stuff when you're kicking in doors and, you're wearing a tack vest and, your gun's out and you're ready for really nasty people. So that part I miss, not the mundane paperwork part.
Right,
I don't
right.
miss.
It's interesting. We talk about risk and different levels of risk and your perception of risk. Everybody's got a different perception of risk because you've been exposed to higher risks and you've been trained for it. And you probably don't think much about it. It's just your
Correct.
job. Whereas James and I tried to insert ourselves in that role, we'd probably be like, wow, this is crazy. We're not doing this, right? So it's that's pretty interesting stuff.
But, we have risk every day.
Yeah,
Our drivers have risk every day.
Right.
We look at what our drivers are doing because we want them to be the best that they can be and as safe as they can be. But it's the other folks on the road that they have to watch out for.
Right.
Right.
There are people think our drivers can stop on a dime
Yeah.
and they're driving a vehicle that's, 90,000 pounds or whatever.
Yep.
Or they think that just because their car's there, our drivers can see them. But our trucks are so large, if you get right into a blind spot,
Right.
you can't see the driver,
Yep.
And, rolling along with that, with the camera systems, people, if something happens with our trucks, the person that's involved automatically says it's our fault.
Right.
And it's not.
Right.
Right.
So the cameras have, saved us a lot because the first thing the person says to a police officer is, that truck did this, that driver did that. And then we pull the footage.
He
and
said, she said.
He said, she said, until we actually show that footage or see that footage.
And Jimmy, we've had countless examples of that, right? I mean, I know when we first installed the cameras, there was a bit of a big brother's watching mentality. Drivers were a little unnerved about, hey, is somebody going to sit there and watch me all day drive? No, I mean, that was never the intent. It still isn't the intent, and that's not what we do.
Right.
But I think once a driver experiences a situation where they were doing everything right, yet were accused of doing something wrong, boy, they really like the cameras at that
Exactly.
point. Right?
100%.
Exactly.
I mean, we've had throughway incidents, Jimmy, where people have come up and actually hit our trucks, swerved in front of our trucks, right? And we assume no harm, no foul until we get a letter from, a law firm saying, hey, we think you guys are at fault. And then we show them the video and
it goes away.
Things seem to go away, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
This month is Distracted Driver Awareness Month, and last year in 2025 there was approximately 37,000+ people that died in distracted driving related accidents, and 8% of that was from cell phone usage. Have you ever been involved in an investigation or an accident where we can prove, hey, yes, they were using their cell phone, and what did that really look like?
It's very difficult unless you see that person on the phone because it's privacy. So if you suspect that someone was distracted by their cell phone, you have to get a search warrant for the cell phone. It has been done. I personally have not had to do that, but I know other officers that have done that. It's time consuming, but it's worth it. I know there are some police agencies that will have a police officer standing on the side of the road, say at a four-way intersection, and that they will call off that car, color, and plate number to a cruiser that's down the street, and they pull them over that way. Because the person that's distracted or on their cell phone, doesn't think that that officer standing on the side of the roadway is paying attention to what they're doing. Otherwise, you can certainly do the same thing as you're driving, but it's a lot easier to do it if there's a party that's standing outside. So it's kind of funny to see, and people get quite upset. But
we've done that in New York with Operation Hard Hat, where troopers actually dress up as construction workers and become part of the crew, but they're actually shooting radar and they're looking for distracted driving as well. And that's been pretty effective. I'm sure the public doesn't love it, but listen, don't speed in work zones.
Right.
You know,
That's huge.
And that's a subject that came up in our drivers training during our safety summits. We're asking drivers to set their trucks up for success, because too often you see someone reaching behind themselves and looking back to get into their lunch pail that's in the back. And, we certainly want you to stay hydrated or have food while you're working, but why not put it on your seat? So we talk about that. Put something, set your truck up so it's organized so that you can just reach over. You don't have to look. And then you can get your bottle of water or your juice or whatever it may be.
That's a great point, Jimmy. And you bring up the safety summits. In tandem with all the other items we've put into play, I feel like as a safety professional, we've kind of upped the game on our driver training in recent years. Would you see you've seen results from that as we go through these summits and we have more drivers come on board that that reflects in what you see on the cameras and all the other activities you see?
Certainly. Yeah. It's amazing to see the difference from 6 years ago to today. It's unbelievable, and you're getting a lot of driver interaction in the drivers trainings, because they want to talk about things that they've seen and that they may have questions about the camera system and the misconceptions of what's going on with the cameras. So it's there is a lot of discussion, and our guys aren't sitting there quiet, just myself or another member just speaking. There's a lot of engagement. There's a lot of back and forth, which is not the way it was, like I said, several years ago. And if there was engagement before, it was people were angry because of the cameras. And that's not the same. It's not.
Yeah, so, I think they've gotten used to them, and I think they understand the intent. And again, I think a lot of it's just a back and forth in relationships with our drivers. I think once they realize somebody's not sitting behind the curtain, watching videos 24/7, and just looking for that first instance of doing something wrong. I think they realize that really it's a positive. You look around, a lot of just regular civilian drivers are all putting dash cams in their car. And that, unfortunately, it's good and bad, I guess, the society we live in. Everybody's looking to protect themselves, and it's amazing the things you still see. You think after a while that people just start to get it a little bit more, especially when you're exposed to Karen and her story. And I know it left an impression on us. Plus, we're safety professionals, so we're already ingrained to kind of be hopefully a little bit safer than most. But it's crazy what you see.
Again, family by choice, we want our members safe. And then, I was thinking when we were talking before about cell phones, I'm old enough to remember driving without a cell phone. And I was able to make it.
You're old, Jimmy.
Yeah, you too. I was able to make it from point A to point B without having a cell phone. You made it. So is it that important that you have to pick that up while you're driving? No, it's not.
No.
Your loved ones know where you're going. And you know what? You call them when you get there. You don't need to be on the phone. There's really nothing that important most of the time.
There's numerous amounts of technology out there these days. In my own truck, I've got hands-free. Everything's hooked up to the display. But, for other things that we have throughout the company, what other habits do you think, would you suggest to the drivers? Say, hey, these are some things I've seen in my history and that I've seen currently that you can set yourself up for success.
Simply, things that we're doing as a company, cell phone holders. I know I've been trying to, especially in the precast location, get cup holders so the guys can put their drinks somewhere that's readily available. Just simple things like that. We try to supply our people with everything they need so that they are successful. But the piece I talked about earlier, when I said setting your truck up for success, like putting your lunchbox on your seat. Those are things that are up to them. Can we standardize that? Maybe, but we trust that people are going to do the right thing. So the more that we bring it up and have those conversations, especially in our training summits, or We can talk about it in toolbox talks or when I travel around to see different drivers, just making sure they're doing the right things and reminding them that, you know, they have a family to go home to.
Right.
And you take your eye off the road and you injure somebody. And do we want that for any of our people? No.
No, we don't. And that's a good point. We go home with our families, and we have a job to do at the end of the day. But earlier you mentioned we're not the ones we have to worry about. We have to worry about the people out there as well. With weather warming up, I see motorcycles more frequently. And I have friends, family that drive motorcycles, and I can understand the concept. You have to look. You have to make sure they're smaller. They can fit in your blind spot a little bit better. Yeah. You want to make sure that you're double checking to make sure that you're seeing those vehicles out there.
Certainly.
So Jimmy, as we start to just kind of wrap up a little bit, any message to our members about just what's your advice? How do we stay clear of distracted driving? How do we stay focused? I mean, a lot of variables out there, a lot of distractions. Mm-hmm. What's your advice?
Just remember that we want nothing but the best for our drivers, our members. But the big thing is you have a family to get home to. And you might be single, but you have friends also. But no one wants you to get harmed. Be responsible. Be safe. Yeah. That's what we want.
And I know it's not natural, but people need to think a little bit about the consequences, right?
Sure.
Nobody's intent is to get up in the morning and get into an accident or cause harm to somebody else. But you got to think, when you're living on the line and you're doing things that you probably shouldn't, be it speeding or on the cell phone, it creates a higher probability that there's going to be a problem.
Sure.
And you need to think about that. Are you prepared for the aftermath of having an accident that's your fault?
No.
When you got two vehicles that doing 60 miles an hour, probability is not good, right?
Yeah.
That you're gonna walk away. Yeah. So you need to think about those things, and it's hard to do. It's not natural.
Right.
I mean, you want to be positive, you don't want to be negative, but
right.
The reality of the world is, listen, if you're living on the line and you're doing things you shouldn't, you need to be prepared for the consequences because they're probably not going to be good.
And you need to build those habits. We spend 8 hours a day at work, a minimum, right?
Right.
And then, you get a minimum of 8 hours sleep, hopefully, right? That's a lot of time you spend at work, probably more than driving for your personal self.
Right.
Build those habits so that when you are driving personally with your family in the cars, with your friends in the car, that you take those habits and you enact them in your real world life as well.
Absolutely.
I will tell you that since I've gotten to this position, even though I've, trained, I've been a trained driver.
Yep.
Seeing the amount of video footage I see makes me a better driver. I'm aware of so many more things. I'm looking for so many different things. Right. I'm making sure I'm looking down the road because there's someone, weaving in and out, or someone's on their cell phone, or there's a hazard up the road. So I take all that stuff in that I see, and again, I'm a much better driver. And I've had drivers come to me to say that, you know what? Because of these cameras, I'm a better driver in my own car.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What's important.
And that's what we want to carry over into their personal life.
Yep.
Right.
Right.
Yep. For sure. Yeah. So as we end the episode, just a message for members, anyone listening to this podcast or watching the video, Distracted Awareness Month is important. Our construction crews are starting to gear up. Yep. And a lot of people are out on the road. Kids are getting ready for spring sports. They're bouncing around because it's hot outside and weather's getting nicer. So let's make sure that we're eyes up, phones down, and we're doing the right choices.
Absolutely. And when you encounter one of our work zones, slow down,
right,
move over, and put the cell phones away.
Yeah.
Please. Those are mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers out there working, just trying to earn a living.
Right.
By paving a road, which ultimately will make the traveling public's life more convenient and easier.
Correct.
Just slow down. Just give them the respect that they're owed out there. It's not an easy job, and slowing down to the posted speed limit's not gonna cost you too much time.
No,
right.
Not at all. Just think of the time that you spend on the side of the road with those lights behind you.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly.
That'll be a real delay. That'll be a real delay.
Yeah. Well,
right.
Jimmy, thank you so much for being on Peckham Pulse, and we hope you had as much fun as we did.
Thanks for doing what you do for us. At Peckham Industries, safety isn't something we talk about when it's convenient. It's who we are and how we show up every day, every shift. Safety is a core value, just like integrity, dedication, and efficiency. So here's our challenge to you. Let your passion for safety lead the way, every shift, every task, every day. Thanks for tuning in to the Peckham Pulse. Stay safe, stay passionate, and be proud knowing that we're building America's infrastructure.